Good morning and welcome to the first day of official press conferences for the 89th Annual All-State Sugar Bowl. We ask that you please turn off all cell phones for our press conferences. Today's first press conference features Kansas State Defensive Coordinator Joe Klanderman. We will have 15 minutes of availability with Coach Klanderman, and then we invite you to move next door to Napoleon A for access to the following Wildcat defensive players: defensive end Felix Anyudike Uzoma, cornerback Julius Brent, linebacker Daniel Green, nose guard Eli Huggins, and linebacker Austin Moore. After Coach Klanderman makes a brief opening statement, we will open the floor to questions. Please wait for the microphone to ask your question, and please identify yourself by your name and media outlet. Thank you. Coach Klanderman.
I just want to thank everybody, thank the Sugar Bowl committee for having us. This is just an unbelievable event with so much tradition. So proud to be a part of it. It's been so welcoming here. We're excited about the opportunity. We're still trying to find a way to put our best 60 minutes of football on the grass or on the turf. I think our guys are going to lay it down for K-State and represent. We're excited about the challenge that's upcoming. We're thankful for the fans that are driving down, crawling down, however they can get down here, trying to find a way to come and support us. And we're just ready to get this thing teed off.
All right, questions?
Joe, when you look at this Alabama offense, what goes through your head?
I think probably people talk about the stars, and they've certainly had their share of those over the years. But I think really up front they're phenomenal. I think they're strong, they're athletic, they move well, they work well, they're cohesive. I think that's kind of the gel that gets this thing all going. And then when you couple that with playmakers around those guys, I think it makes them a real dangerous crew to stop.
With Bryce Young opting in, so to speak, does it make it more of a known commodity as opposed to having someone else out there that might change the offense a little bit?
Yeah, we were in flux there for a little while. Didn't really know. I think there's definitely two different styles of offense, depending on who the trigger man is. And you certainly have a lot more background with Bryce Young. Going back a couple years of offensive stuff and kind of his cadence and rhythm, and I think we do absolutely. I think you're right on that. We do know a little bit more about Bryce than we do the others.
Yeah, and finally, what exactly do they do that causes stress points for a defense?
I just think it's we've certainly seen more complicated schematics. We've seen more tempo. We've seen more. It's not that. What makes it go is the execution. I think they play really hard. I think they've got obviously a lot of talent and skill. I think they play a physical brand of football. That's the hidden sauce, is just the toughness, the physicality, and the execution and the grind, play after play, and that's what makes them unique.
Scott Fritch from K-State Athletics. Say, Joe, I was curious, you have held every opponent underneath their scoring average this season. Why is that?
I don't look at it until I guess it's over, but we're just trying to get out of each series. Honestly, that's the mindset. We're not trying to hold them under whatever 34 whatever points per game there is. We're just trying to win each series, win each play, and I think when you stack enough of those together, that's the magic. And we're just trying to find ways to continue to give different pictures and different looks on each snap so that we can have success on that snap. And then when you put it together 60 minutes of that, you end up with a good result.
Right here in front.
Hey, Joe. Kellis Robinette here with the Wichita Eagle Kansas City Star. I know bowl prep is always a fun time for you guys because you get to look ahead a little bit, develop some guys, get them an opportunity to play a little bit more in practice. Who are some guys who've stood out to you during that time leading up to this game?
From a developmental standpoint, I'm going to say Toby Sami has been awesome. I think Jake Clifton continues to develop, and VJ Payne continues to develop and mature. I know those guys have played a little bit in games, but we've got some really young players that we're extremely excited about moving forward. From an older guy perspective, we're still pushing a lot of kind of these intermediate guys that are going to be the guys in the future, the Austin Moores and the Nate Matlacks and those guys into more leadership positions. We're just trying to set the stage for what the spring and the winter is going to look like for those guys as they, as the Eli Huggins and some of those guys move on. Who's going to fill that void of being the voice in the room, and we're trying to push that on those guys as much as we can during this time also.
I also wanted to ask, is Echo up to full speed right now?
Yeah, Echo practiced yesterday. He practiced on Monday also. He seems to be not showing any ill effects of anything. I think he's ready to go.
Derek Young with the K-State Online. Is it fair to assume that you guys weren't expecting any opt-outs either with, guys that could have done it with Deuce and Felix? And is that a product of your culture?
Yeah, absolutely. We never really considered it, and I don't think there was any players that we had to have discussions with or that we were worried about. I think our guys are excited about representing K-State and just want to go out there and play.
And what kind of goes through your mind when you know some of these players, you're coaching them for the last time?
Yeah, it hasn't hit me yet. I try not to think about it. It's going to be really emotional. Just having that final meeting, that final walkthrough, that final, pregame kind of hullabaloo that we go through. It's going to be a lot. Been through a lot with a lot of these guys. Think about the COVID year, and think about, some of these guys. Eli Huggins was here when we got here, and it's going to be certainly a different feel without those guys in the room.
Michael Goins, GoPowerCat.com. Joe, can you describe briefly just the evolution of the 3-3-5 defense and the changes you've made and how that's come along in 2 seasons?
Yeah, a year ago we were just piecemealing things together as much as we could. There was a lot of week-to-week learning. There was a lot of things that, and when I say that, there was a lot of week-to-week install for the players, particularly on third downs, where I think we still were behind the curve. I think we did a lot of work in the off season to get, I guess, what I would call a package together where we can name things, and I think it's a lot different than what we were accustomed to. In that, I think you can play a little bit more offensive football on defense. I think there's a lot of adjustments that we can make real subtly that don't affect a whole lot of people other than maybe 1 or 2, just with a simple tag or with a simple change in alignment, and. So we got to that stage, I think, a little bit over the off season, and I think throughout the year we haven't deviated much from that. We pretty much stayed true to that. So it's allowed us to be a little bit more, probably carry some more things week to week than what we typically would in the past. Back in the 4-down days, I don't know the magic recipe, but we maybe carried in a given week maybe 3 base defenses and 3 pressures in base down situations. Now we can carry 9 things, and it just doesn't mind blow our guys because they're not that much different for them technically. And so we're just able to do a little bit more with it right now, and I think that's going to continue to evolve. I think there's things we're talking about on a daily basis now that are going to be different moving ahead. Boy, I wish we had that, or, and those are some things that we're going to start to explore in January and February moving ahead into spring ball.
Arnie Green, Topeka Capital Journal, Salina Journal. Wanted to ask about Felix. His numbers may not necessarily reflect it, but how big an impact has he had this year, just, I guess, from his presence and people having to...
Yeah, he dictates so much attention. I know exactly where you're driving at. He's just, we've seen teams that have turned their protection to him when we've given no other looks. And he's made life a lot easier for a guy like Brendan Mott, who's had a tremendous year, in part because of himself, but also, as a byproduct of the attention that Felix garners. Nate Matlack, Jalen Pickle, some of these guys are really the beneficiaries of what Felix can do and how disruptive he can be. In terms of just, there's another guy that just the growth that he's, over 2 years where he was to where he is now is incredible. And, just maturity, not only on the football field but off. I'm so proud of him and the journey that he's made so far.
And also, Daniel Green obviously has had issues all year with injuries and stuff. Where is he now in his...
He's full speed. He's as good as he's been. He probably feels... probably wishes he had some of those weeks back. There was probably 5 or 6 weeks in there where he didn't really practice. We did as many walkthrough things with him and got him as many pictures as we could get him, but he was not practicing. He'd go out there and he'd limp around on Saturday, but his leadership and his presence was so important to us that we needed to do it that way. And he had a mid-season surgery and is able to come back and he's been phenomenal since he's gotten better and better each week.
Ted Lewis, New Orleans Times speaking. And Coach, I want to go back to the conference championship game.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reaction by the defensive staff when you saw TCU going for it on 4th down?
Well, I assumed that they would. You get to that. I knew that was going to happen. Nobody really stopped them. The question for them after the game, I'm sure, is why didn't you keep it in the quarterback's hands? Nobody really stopped their tailback either. I don't blame the play call. I just kind of knew what we were going to get, and we buckled down. And it's amazing to put something of that magnitude on one play or one technique. That's just phenomenal. But I didn't doubt for a second they would go for it.
We have time for 2 more questions, please.
Coach Cole Carmody, GoPowerCat.com. When you go back and you look at who Alabama's played this season, specifically the teams and their defensive structure, not a lot of 3-3-5 in there. Is that kind of something that you guys take into account when you go through your game plan, or how much do you take away from how other teams defend Alabama?
Yeah, we obviously look at that the same way that their offense would look at things that have hurt us. It makes it, it's good and bad to that. The good is you haven't probably spent a bunch of time working against that stuff. The bad is we don't necessarily see how they attack those things. We're looking for that stuff too. We're looking for, man, I wish we could see how they block this, or I'd see how they protect this, or what route structure do they like against this picture? Where do they throw the ball in man versus zone? Those are things that we're looking at that we sometimes have a hard time finding. It's been the evolution of the Big 12. For a while it was all 3 down while we were a 4 down team, and then we go to 3 down thinking we're going to get more pictures, and everybody else goes to 4 down. And it just kind of, it's the revolving door. So we got a little bit of anticipation and guesswork that we're putting into that right now.
Hey, Joe. Tim Everson, Manhattan Mercury. You guys came into the season with a lot of spaces to fill in the secondary. You get Drake, Kobe, Josh, and the freshmen to come in. They all make a huge impact. Looking back on that process now, how pleased are you with how that process kind of turned out and the meshing of all of that?
It's a couple years in a row now where we've had to do that. A year ago with Reggie Stubblefield and Russ Yeast, and this year with all the players that you mentioned, and the surprising one in that probably none of them surprised me because they're all just tremendous competitors, and they will work and do whatever you need to do to get the job done. VJ Payne, what he's done as a true freshman is sensational. I think he's been fitting right along with that group, and I think the fact that he's with Kobe and with Josh and with Sincere Mason and with Drake and those older guys, he's kind of seeing how they operate and how you need to operate to play at an elite level. And I'm so thankful that those young guys got to spend time with those guys, even if it was brief.
All right, thanks, Coach. And once again, Wildcat defensive players are now available next door in Napoleon A.
Thank you, guys.